When it comes to some directors, there are films that can't go unmentioned when talking about them. For Kubrick, it could be 2001: A Space Odyssey or A Clockwork Orange. For Tarantino, it could be Pulp Fiction or Kill Bill. For Tarkovsky, it would likely be Stalker, so on and so forth. Denis Villeneuve certainly has those films, and we will talk about them when we get there, but August 32nd on Earth is not one of those such films. Villeneuve has burst upon the world stage within the past 10 years for his wonderful sci-fi films and gritty crime dramas. With a huge amount of critical and box office success, Villeneuve is one of the very few ace directors currently in the prime of their career. To bolster my point about August 32nd on Earth not being a film really said often with the same breath as Denis' name, it's a film that's not even listed on his They Shoot Pictures, Don't They profile, and yet it is his directorial debut. I feel it isn't listed because it isn't a true feel for who Denis is, or even who he would become as a director and an artist. It's a rom-com that is short on comedy and features many events that feel uneventful or without much consequence or impact. Much like many others have, this entry, despite having surpassed the status of average and into good territory in my rating, is better off being forgotten. And what I mean by that is a lot of directors, they do have directorial debuts that are better off forgotten. See Stanley Kubrick for such example. As you can see, we're jumping right into the action, ranking Denis Villeneuve's movies while we're chatting, but be sure to drop your personal list down below so we can discuss. Moving on, at number 10, we have Polytechnique, a film named after the university in which a tragic shooting occurred. I've only really seen two films of this ilk off the top of my head, Elephant and Day Zero, and I do recommend those. I think comparing this to Elephant, the Gus Van Sant film, did me a disservice and made me not truly appreciate this film maybe the way that others have. It has messaging about the dangers of falling deeply into a pathology or thought patterns, this specific one being men's rights and misogynistic thought patterns towards women. I also think it does a good job of delivering the feelings of survivor's guilt. This film was purposefully as bleak as possible, and I respect that choice, but it flirts too closely with just reliving tragedy rather than using it to tell a transcendent message, though I feel that's open to argument in my opinion, especially based on the way others have rated this. Again, to that point, others really like this and found great meaning in it, so I may be well off base, but I currently have it in the same tier as August 32nd on Earth. Again, good, above average, but not very good or great. Before we get to the next film, I ask that you please subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon. I have a long library of videos analyzing and reviewing some of the very films we're discussing now or about to discuss, but also ranking all the works of some of our favorite directors. I've ranked all of Stanley Kubrick, the giant of cinema's films, all of Tarantino, the Cinema Encyclopedia's films, and just recently released my ranking of Christopher Nolan's films. So please do subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss what I'm working on next. Coming up next is a film much like the other two previous entries, but a tick above in my opinion, and that is Maelstrom. This is a film that is nowhere near as popular as some of the likes of a lot of the films that are often come to mind when thinking of Denis Villeneuve, but it has that sense of strangeness that it's cool to see that side of from Denis. I found great meaning in this really weird and unique film. From the meaning of life to the value of life to finally the continuation of life, this film has plenty to say. While it's not as well known or as highly rated, this offbeat and unique film is one I would recommend for fans of Denis who like a little art house cinema in their life. Coming up next, a film that others will likely burn me at the stake for having in the same tier as Maelstrom, but I think this speaks more to Maelstrom and less of this film, and that film is, of course, Arrival. I remember watching this in theater and my jaw dropping at the ending of this film. It should be said, if you do like twist endings, this is certainly one of the best films on this list to watch, but truth be told, there are a lot of others, or at least a handful of others, that are tremendous twists. Ultimately, the sci-fi elements and detail that went into this story working towards the twist, all of that was quite brilliant. Admittedly, I rated this based on the memory of what I thought about this film rather than my fresh take as I did every other film on this list, so I think that gives plenty of ammo to those who think this is way too low on my ranking. This makes this film a great rewatch candidate and will likely understand any and all flack that comes for ranking this so low. Next is a film that I feel gets maligned and or underappreciated, and that is Enemy. For those who have seen this and dislike this film or just don't get it, I implore you to please watch my analysis on it. The big twists and symbolism behind it make this movie confusing and hard to actually fully understand or appreciate. But once you see the whole picture and what Villeneuve is trying to illustrate, I find he freaking crushes with this film, and I think it's absolutely great. We should also mention that Gyllenhaal puts on a terrific performance in this one, a phrase that can likely apply to another movie on this list, and you'll know once we get there. Next up is Dune. This is a film that I honestly didn't give its flowers when it first came out, but have really come around on since rewatching in preparation for the sequel. We should also know by now that the subject matter is well respected and ripe for a proper film adaptation, but Villeneuve goes above and beyond in setting the stage. I don't normally applaud CGI, it's very rarely something I bring up, but it's on par with what should be expected from a big blockbuster such as Dune. I also think that this film, or the story's lore, is on par with the dope trilogies that we've now come to love over time, like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Next, we have Sicario, which is freaking dope, point blank. The cartel and Americans' war on drugs against one another has been in the national spotlight for a little while now, but I feel this movie gives as close a look at this gritty subject as I can think of off the top of my head, and well done at that. Not only is it cool and wonderful to see Villeneuve through a lens of a crime drama, something that we will see a couple more times, but it's awesome to see him crush it like this. The film is full of great performances, but it's also a subject matter ripe for the taking, and Denis does just that with Sicario. Coming up next is a film that I have put off rewatching for far too long, and that is Blade Runner 2049. Look, I get all the hype now. When I watched this in theater originally, I thought it was good, and I kind of had a Dune moment, but even more so, because I felt the themes of this were so on point when it comes to defining humanity in a world that has AI or robots that are seemingly more human than how humans are treated and how humans act even. We have greed playing a huge role with industrial leaders who put their ego so far above anything that it allows them to treat others as though they are subhuman and create these replicants in a way that makes them feel like God. So it's a film that I think does a better job of maybe widening the spectrum of what it means to be human and make us question where we can fall at different times, maybe historically, or pondering in this dystopian hellscape what we are capable of becoming, but also how machines or something created rather than born can fall on that spectrum. And I just really like films that make you ponder stuff like that, philosophical questions about what it means to be human. And I think Villeneuve really freaking nailed this subject material, and he takes what is established in the original and he takes that ball and runs with it. And I think he even kind of goes past what could be expected to be done thematically with Blade Runner 2049. And I didn't really appreciate or pick up on that enough when I first watched it, but I was locked in on this rewatch, and I feel like I caught it all, and damn, I'm glad I rewatched it, and I think it is rightfully ranked amongst Villeneuve's best, and it's certainly, I mean, the way he nailed this big an IP, the Blade Runner sequel, makes it apparent why he was the correct choice to take on the Dune IP. Coming up next is one of Denis' most critically acclaimed films, and that is Incendies. As I said with Arrival, this too is one of the best twists in Villeneuve's filmography, with only one really remaining that challenges for that crown. From its French spoken language, along with Arabic and English, to its intense violence, Denis shows shades of past and present, merging his French-Canadian side, which we see with Maelstrom and August 32nd on Earth, and what we would later see in his crime drama films like Sicario, with obviously crime and intense violence. A religious war and violent backlash unravels a past for two twins that would shock even the most seasoned movie fan. Coming into this, I expected something good, because it is Denis, but I was blown away by this film. Next, we have Prisoners. And look, this is a film I've liked for a very long time and would recommend to mostly anyone. While some of Denis' other films are very much sci-fi based and certainly ripe for a recommendation for fans of that, Prisoners feels like a film that has no prerequisites to like. Yes, obviously, I'm wrong on this. This film is a crime drama and has intense moments and very scarily violent moments, but it's right up my alley. This has unbelievable, in a good way, twists, insane, again in a good way, performances from Jackman and Gyllenhaal and Dano and Das Malchin, and a fucking amazing ending. Please, if you haven't watched this, make time to. That leaves one film left for numero uno, and that is, of course, Dune Part 2. Did I drink the Kool-Aid? Maybe. There are many who have bought into the hype of this film, just like me, and for good reason. This film properly builds up a tremendous amount of hype for a final conflict that it gives us in the same film. I've seen too many series, The Hobbit, I'm looking at you, build up something only to tease it as something you need to come back next year to see. Well, guess what? Most series are guilty of this, to the point that it felt like it would be a given that we wouldn't see Chalamet v. Butler, but gee dog dang it, we did. I went into a whole review as to why I think this film is masterful, and I encourage you to watch it, but let me just say, as it stands, it is my favorite Denis Villeneuve movie. But that's all I have for now. Please, if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to do so. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss anything new, and let me know your personal Denis Villeneuve rankings down below so we can discuss what we think should be higher, what should be lower, and whether I need to rewatch Arrival and completely redo this list. I appreciate you watching, and I will catch you on the flippity floop. Bye, y'all.